Here it is, the last wrap up of the year, December 2024. And this month was full of very exciting new reads and some absolute disappointments. So let's get right into everything I read this month. I finished Emperor of Thorns on December 2nd, but it was mostly a book I read in November, and it was the last book in the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence. It was very good, not as good as King of Thorns, but I still really liked it. I feel like it just wasn't the book for me. I know other people really like Emperor of Thorns, but it was just like still very good. It didn't hit the same notes as King of Thorns, and so it just wasn't quite as good for me. After that, we got into the big mamma jamma of the month, and that was Wind and Truth. That 1,300 plus page tome that I read in, I don't know, a week. I can't remember. It was great. It's probably my new favorite Stormlight Archive book. I made a review about it. You can check that out in the description along with another book in this wrap up, and it had everything I wanted, and some stuff I didn't really care about, but it made characters I didn't like enjoyable to read, which was great. And he gave me exactly what I wanted for my favorite character in the series. So of course I'm very pleased with what we ended up with. And after that, I did what I always do, and I read a Travis McGee book. Now what's funny is I read it out of order on accident, and I read The Long Lavender Look, which is one of the top 3 McGee novels in the series, and this is book number 12. It is amazing. It is a classic Travis McGee novel with just like a normal mystery that he would be dealing with, but just better in like every way. It's everything that John D. MacDonald excels at in this series, just a little bit better. And the ending was unparalleled. I just was heartbroken when I got to it, and I absolutely adored it. And after that, I decided I could not stay away from the Cosmere. So I went right back into it with The Sunlit Man, which I never read before. And I talk about that in my Wind and Truth video, because I also reviewed The Sunlit Man. And I am so glad I read it after Wind and Truth. If you haven't read it yet and you're in the Cosmere, don't read it until after Wind and Truth. I think it works a lot better that way. There are some things that happen in Wind and Truth that aren't as suspenseful if you read The Sunlit Man first. At least some people say that. Some people disagree, but I am very happy that I read The Sunlit Man after, and it's so good. It feels like a classic Cosmere novel in all of the best ways. It's just so fun. Go check out my review if you want to hear more about it, because I don't want to give the same review again in this video. After that, when I realized my mistake, I went back to Travis McGee book 11, which is Dress Her in Indigo. And it is very good, but has some issues. It's kind of hard to pin down. It just feels off in a lot of ways. It really makes up for everything it was lacking with an absolute banger of an ending. So it went from being like just like 3-ish stars to like a 4-star McGee novel, which is pretty good. It takes place almost entirely in Mexico, and it was dark. There's a lot of moments in there where I just felt unsettled because, not every story is going to end in a good or happy way. And the ending to this one was one of those times where even when you solve the case and win, you still lose. There was no good ending for this book. No outcome would have led to everything being okay. And I think that's a really, really great way to end one of these novels, because you can't always tie everything up. And even when you do tie everything up, you get punished for it. So I really liked that. I think the more I think about it, the more I like that book. It's one of those that's probably going to be tumbling around in my brain a lot more than some of the more generic McGee novels. So it was great. I mean, this is now my 12th McGee novel. I'm in love with the series. Well, I couldn't get away from the Cosmere, so I read Dawn Shard, which I meant to read a long time ago and then forgot about it. Well, at first I didn't even know it existed because I just kind of stopped paying attention to Brandon Sanderson's stuff after the Secret Projects. Not that I wasn't interested in his books anymore. I just had a lot going on and forgot that Dawn Shard was ever written. So I went back and checked that out, and it was fun. It's an okay Cosmere book. I actually like Edge Dancer better, which a lot of people would not agree with, but I like Lift, and everyone that doesn't like Lift is, wrong. So Dawn Shard is like Stormlight Archive 3.5, which I didn't realize when I started it. So I was trying to like fit it in somewhere in my mental timeline, and it wasn't making sense. And it follows, well, I don't want to spoil it because everything in this is a spoiler for Stormlight Archive. So there's not really much I can say, but I do like it. The Lopen is in it, which is always fun. I know a lot of people dislike him almost as much as they dislike Lift, which doesn't make sense. I think this is another one of those books that the more I think about it, the more I like it. it was just fun. It's very short, especially for a Sanderson book, and I had a good time. After that, I decided to try a Richard Stark novel. I read Parker #1, which is The Hunter, and The Hunter is about a guy named Parker, and it is him out for revenge after he got sold out doing a job. This guy is a professional thief. He robs like armored cars and like paycheck places, stuff like that. He steals from anywhere that's got a bunch of cash because that's all he cares about is stacking enough cash to just not work for a couple years and just live the good life. And he is not a good guy. And this book is about him being a very bad guy and getting back at some other bad people. And it's interesting, but also like he sucks as a person. And so you're following him and the story is well written and the characters are all interesting, but you're still following a dude that sucks. And so it takes away some of the fun. Like when you read Travis McGee, he deals with a lot of people that suck, but he's charming. He's very jaded about the world. He has his own philosophy and his own code, and he's just a joy to be around. Parker is not fun to be around. Parker is awful. I'm not going to say when it happens, but at one point he silences a woman by taping up her mouth and she ends up dead. And he's just like, well, she should have breathed through her nose or something. And it's like, what? Dude, you suck. Now I've heard that Richard Stark, also known as Donald Westlake, wrote other stuff under his real name, Donald Westlake. And those are a little more lighthearted and not as, messed up or jaded as his Parker series. So I will give those a try. I got quite a few of them and that will be interesting. But yeah, I kind of bounced off the Parker stuff. I might give the second book a try. We'll see. There are a lot of book series from the 1950s and 1960s that I will probably read first before I get into any more Parker novels. And speaking of that, the next thing I read was Cop Hater by Ed McBain, the first novel in the 87th Precinct series. This book came out in 1956 and it was great. I really had a lot of fun with it. I think that Ed McBain did a great job at creating the police procedural novel because he was like the first, and it was inspired by Dragnet. The book and the series take place in Isola, which is like his made up version of New York City, and it is beautiful. The city is a character, and he does such a wonderful job of describing it. You feel like you are there. This is an amazing rendition of a cop story, and I had so much fun with it. The premise behind the series was he wanted to create a book series that didn't have a main character. Instead, the main character was the 87th Precinct. So some books follow one or two detectives, another one follows another detective or someone attached to the precinct. And Cop Hater is about this very hot summer in Isola, and a cop gets killed on his way to work. And then another cop gets killed on his way home from work, and no one knows who's doing it, and they're trying to figure it out before another cop gets killed. And it's like an all hands on deck thing, and there's these really interesting parts to it where he kind of is aware that people don't like police, and there's this one scene where these two cops are walking to an apartment to question someone, and they're like, how are we going to find this person? Everyone hates cops now. We don't even do anything wrong, and they just automatically don't like us, blah blah blah. Well, they get there and they start questioning this dude, and it's like 1 a.m. or something. The guy's like, why are you waking me up? And then they're like, oh, we're trying to find out blah blah blah. They're looking for someone that has a specific gun. And this guy's like, well, yeah, I have that gun, but it literally hasn't been fired since I got it from my brother. And they're like, you got a license for that gun, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I have a license for it. And they get the gun, and it's obvious that he's not the guy, and it's obvious that it's not the gun, but they just keep being incredibly difficult with him, and they're jerks. And they're just like, oh, well, where's your paperwork for this gun? And they just start badgering about something that has nothing to do with the case they're trying to solve. And it's like, oh, this is why people have a problem with you, because even when you figure out that you're wrong, you just dug in and were more of an ass. Ed McBain has to have been aware of that in the way he set it up, and it's just really good. There's a lot more to this than just the surface level crime story, and I really appreciated it. I will be reading more 87th Precinct novels. I had a great time with this one. After that, I went to yet another crime novel. You're going to see by the time this month is over, I think half or more of what I read was crime. I'll check at the end. I read Travis McGee, number 13, A Tan and Sandy Silence. And A Tan and Sandy Silence was magnificent as usual. This was even better than the last one. I had such a great time with it. It had like a very interesting mystery that ended up getting like twisted about 3/4 of the way through. The whole mystery was Travis McGee trying to find an old friend that had gone missing. It was just very good. I had such a good time with this one. It went to all new locations that I don't want to spoil. And one of the things that John D. MacDonald excels at is taking you away from your real life problems and putting you in Travis McGee's head, visiting these beautiful locations, meeting these interesting people. And it was the perfect escape that I needed, like right after Christmas and right before the hustle and bustle of New Year's and stuff. I had such a great time with it. I just cannot believe that we're 13 books into this 21 book series, and I still have not read like 2 or 3 of the best ones he's written. Those are later on. The fact that this man went 21 books deep with this series and just kept up this high quality writing is just astounding. John D. MacDonald is legit one of my new favorite writers of all time. I can't wait to read more of his stuff. I have almost everything he's written now in ebook, and I'm going to slowly collect them in physical because I just love the way they look. Even the old paperbacks, like look at this one, A Man of Affairs. It just looks so cool. It's got a little speedboat, and it's just like the vibe of these novels, yellow pages and all. I really enjoy it, and they're babies, little baby book. This man had a lot of respect for his readers' time. His books are short, very well written, easy to read through, and I just cannot get enough of him. Now, the next book I read, thanks to Carlos from StoryTube, is The Searcher by Tana French. This was part of the 6 books that he sent me, and I did a video with Carlos and Yolanda from StoryTube talking about all the books that I sent to him and that he sent to me. And when he told me that this one had Western vibes and had this beautiful exploration of Western Ireland, I was like, well, you sold me when you said Western. And The Searcher follows Cal Hooper, who is a former Chicago cop who has retired and moved to Western Ireland to get away from his ex-wife and just his life as a Chicago cop. He wanted a hard reset. He's like 48 years old, and he gets to this small town. He's a stranger. He's trying to kind of learn his way around, meet the locals, kind of get accepted by them. And out of nowhere, this mysterious kid shows up. They want Cal to find their missing brother, who just up and disappeared like 6 months before. So Cal starts looking, and he starts getting pushback from some of the locals. Things are not as they seem, and the deeper he digs, the more pushback he gets, and it's such a wonderful novel. Tana French is a magnificent writer. I was completely blown away. It seriously would have been in my top 5 for 2024 if I hadn't set the cutoff at like December 19th. This is my book of the month. Tana French wrote this in third person present, and at the time that I was reading it, I was like, man, this flows so well, this intensity and this beautiful writing, and I couldn't figure out why. And then when I figured out it was third person present, I was like, okay, this all makes sense now, because when you write in third person present, there's like this pressure to the reader. You feel propelled through the story because everything is just so right here, right now. And I really, really appreciated that. Tana French writes in a way that I wish I could write, to the point that I want to be a copycat, just maybe in a different genre. I'm seriously thinking about just mimicking her style. Her characters are all amazing. Cal is such a wonderful protagonist. The dialogue is magnificent. I mean, this book is perfect in every way, down to the number of pages. I mean, everything, word count, structure, the story, it's all so good. And I haven't even talked about her mastery of making Ireland feel real. The descriptions of everything around him, because it's taking place in the Western Irish countryside. The countryside is a character in itself, and it's probably the best written character in the book, which is really saying something considering Cal and the cast around him. I loved it. I will be reading The Hunter in 2025, and there's a very good chance, if it's even like half as good as The Searcher, it's going to be in my top 10 of the entire year. It's just such a wonderful book. I cannot believe how good it is. Yes, I've just raved for however many minutes in a row about this book. Everyone should read it. Carlos, I am in your debt for giving me such a wonderful book. I don't know if any of the others will hold a candle to this, but man, I can't wait to read the rest of the stuff that you gave me. And after that, I read another mystery novel, and that was Wicked Bronze Ambition by Glenn Cook. And that is my final new Glenn Cook novel until Lies Weeping comes out. And this book was bad. I mean, I barely finished it. It's way too long. There is a ton of chapters in here that do nothing and go nowhere. They have nothing to do with setting up anything for the future, and they have nothing to do with world building. They're literally just Garrett wandering around with someone who is like flexing that they're good at magic, and it serves no purpose. And on top of all of that, the book is a meandering, like convoluted mess, and the very good heartfelt moments that are like some of the best he's ever written are in this book, but they're just mixed in with what is basically a terrible novel. So you lose all the impact you should be getting from those plot points, which sucks because the ending is very good. It's very strange, like very Glenn Cook strange. If you read all of his books, you realize he starts getting really weird in the last like 2 decades of his writing after he finished The Black Company, which is fine, but sometimes they don't go anywhere. And like you can be really weird, but you also have to be a really talented writer. You can't just be strange because then the books are just bad. And this was the worst Garrett novel. It really sucks that I ended my Glenn Cook reading on such a bad book, but I mean, what was I going to do? How would I know? But now I know, and I can tell everyone else. So be on the lookout for a future video where I talk about every single Glenn Cook novel that has been published. So I will be making a Glenn Cook guide. I have finished them. I will be your Sherpa. Please check that out when I release it. That was it. Let's see how many crime/mystery novels I read this month. Out of the 11, 7 of them were crime or mystery novels. So that was quite the month. When it comes to my plans for January, I really don't know yet. I am currently reading The Earth Abides by George Stewart, which was supposed to be finished by the end of this year, but I really enjoy it. It was just a lot. And so I've been taking my time. I might finish that this weekend. I'm not sure. I might just chip away at it some more. I made a video about some vintage science fiction and fantasy stuff I wanted to finish by the end of the year. I finished half of them. Earth Abides was on that list, as was Silverlock by John Myers and Gather Darkness by Fritz Leiber. I'll get to those this year. And beyond that, I am going to have an author that I dedicate the year to. I'm not sure who it's going to be yet. It might actually be 2 authors because, you know, I punished myself by reading 35 plus Glenn Cook novels in a single year. So why not do 2 authors this year? We'll see. One might just be an accidental thing because I've enjoyed them so much that I might just read 1 book of theirs a week or every 2 weeks. And then, hey, look at that. I'll be done with them by the end of the year. So we'll see. When I make solid plans about that, I will make a video about it to hold myself accountable and, hopefully it's not too punishing. The last few Glenn Cook books were just not fun, which sucks. Like I had no fun with Instrumentalities of the Night to the point that I DNF'd it. So hopefully things will be better with a different author. I still love Glenn Cook. His highs are the highest you can get, and his lows aren't the lowest because, man, I've read some stinkers from other authors, but they're still pretty low. But overall, his books are just like mid to amazing, so could be worse. And when it comes to what's going on with this channel, I'm going to be doing some things a little different this year because I've noticed I read a lot of books, a lot more than I used to, and a monthly wrap up like this is just a ton of books, and I'm almost tempted to start doing this weekly and then talking about like my TBR. We'll see. Let me know in the comments if that would be interesting for any of you. It means more videos, hopefully. Other than that, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing with the addition of wanting other booktubers to come on here and just chat with me about things. I don't know what the format will be yet, but I would like to get more people in because I have so much fun talking to other people about books. I love talking to the camera about books, but when you get a back and forth, it's just really fun. Even if you go off on like a tangent, I mean, the digressions are some of the best things in discussions like that. Hopefully I can make that happen this year too. We'll see. 2024 was like an amazing year for me for reading, and I really want to keep that pace up for 2025. And thank you all so much for watching my videos, leaving amazing comments, and I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.